Welcome to our financial market course. So, still under Unit 1, we are on Session 4 and we are going to look at assets as well as the determinants of assets demand. So, by the end of this session, you should be able to identify and explain the various factors that explain asset demand. So, what is an asset? So an asset or assets refers to economic resources that are controlled by individuals and they promise a protection of the value of that asset as well as a future return. So anything that you hold and that particular thing has an economic value or will give you a future economic value is known as an asset. So your land can be an asset because in a case where you want to sell it, it promises an economic return or economic value, and so a land can be classified as an asset. Also, a house or any property you have that promises economic value at the end or anytime you decide to sell it is an asset. Yes, and assets are very important because holders of these assets gain economic value. Economic value is basically in terms of money. And in this unit, we are considering the four main determinants of assets demand. So why will people want to even keep assets in the first place? So the first reason we want to look at is wealth. So one will ask, what is wealth? What is the value of an investor at any point in time? So when you see any investor or any rich man, all he has at any point in time is known as wealth, and assets contribute to wealth. So as I was saying, your land, your house, your car, all these things account for your wealth. So the main motive why people want to hold assets is because it contributes to their wealth. So one key determinant of asset demand is wealth. So at any point in time, if an investor, we want to look at the value of an investor and you look at the wealth of the investor, all these items in terms of the land, the cars, which will determine the value of the investor comes under the asset, and that accounts for the main reason why people demand assets. The next is the expected returns. People hold assets based on the expected returns. So when we talk about expected returns, we are looking at the fact that, for example, a land. Let's say you buy a land for 15,000 this year, 15,000 Ghana cedi for this year. You realize that in a few months' time, the price of the land can increase, and we know that for specific kinds of assets, their value appreciates. A key example is land. The value of land always appreciates. So some investors will want to hold or demand for an asset based on the perceived returns that they will gain from holding that asset. Remember that if this particular investor chooses to sell the land in 2 or 3 years' time, he's not going to sell the land for 15,000. In fact, for all you know, the value of the land in the market may be about 30,000, and he may decide to price the land to about 35,000 based on the location of the land. So expected returns or the expected value or the expected gain that an investor will have is another key determinant of the demand of an asset. Risk. So when we talk about risk, we are talking about unexpected or unforeseen happenings. People may hold assets or demand for assets based on a perceived risk. So considering somebody who is into the purchase of bonds and stock. If the person expects that the value of the bond will increase in the coming 4 to 5 months, the person may not sell the bonds at the moment, but the person would hold a bond due to the perceived risk of selling it at a cheaper price right now and hold that bond or stock now and sell it in the next 4 months and gain a higher return. Similarly, if an investor presumes that the price of a bond or the price of a security is going to reduce in the coming weeks or in the coming months, the investor might or may sell the bond now in order to reduce the risk that will accrue from holding that kind of asset. So under risk, we have two types of risk. We have the upward risk and the downward risk. So the upward risk is where the actual outcome is higher than the expected outcome. So the actual outcome in the future is higher than the expected outcome today. But with the downward risk, we are saying that the actual outcome of holding that particular asset is lower than the expected income. So for investors, they weigh both risk, whether they want to enjoy from the upward risk or the downward risk, and make the decision of holding the asset. So risk is also a key element to consider on asset demand. The last important factor to consider or investors look at in demanding for an asset refers to liquidity. And when we talk about liquidity, we are talking about the ease with which an asset can easily be converted into cash or the equivalence of cash. And we are saying that this ease of converting assets to cash is reflected in the availability of potential buyers when one is no longer interested in assets. For example, for a car, it gets to a point you feel like you are no more interested in that car and you want to sell it. The ease with which you are able to sell that car is what we consider as liquidity. So based on the ease with which an investor is able to convert an asset into cash, the investor chooses wisely, or he is able to pre-inform the investor on which kind of asset he or she is supposed to hold. So we have learned that wealth, the expected returns, and the risk, as well as liquidity, are very key issues investors look at when it comes to asset determination. All too soon, we've come to the end of this session and we have learned generally about assets as well as the factors that influence the demand for assets as well as financial and non-financial institutions. So the key factors we've looked at here includes wealth, expected returns, risk, as well as liquidity. Thank you for making time and see you in the next session.